These 5 frugal payday habits help me live below my means. They form a 30-minute monthly routine, keeping you out of your overdraft and not dreading that last week before payday. And it takes even less time with a monthly budgeting spreadsheet, and I'm going to show you how I use mine in this video. Kicking off with my first habit, and this one is really crucial to get started with the right mindset, and that is to budget for who you are, not who you want to be. This one has been absolutely life-changing for me because your budget has to be realistic, okay? When you sit down in front of a budgeting spreadsheet, you probably have all these ideas of all the money that you want to save and all the cool things you read about or saw on videos online about frugal habits, and you have all these ideas of I'm gonna really cut back. I'm not gonna spend anything at all. I'm gonna stay at home, I'm just gonna eat beans, and I'm not gonna have any fun, but it's gonna be brilliant because I'm gonna have all this money left over every single month. But the thing is, who you are when you sit down in front of your spreadsheet is not gonna be who you are every single day. You need to take into account the person, the part of you that maybe likes to get their nails done. Maybe that is your one treat in the month, or the one takeaway you have in the month. That is like your one treat in the month. Because if you go on a crash budget and you deprive yourself of all of these things, chances are that at some point maybe you'll lose motivation, maybe just you'll decide cold turkey isn't for you and you'll just go crazy and frivolous and just spend it all, whatever. It has to be sustainable change. So find a balance that allows for some of the things that are not essential, but that you really love. I think fun money is really important to keeping you on track with a budget. Okay, so now that we've got our mindset right and we're gonna approach this in a practical, balanced way, now we need to know exactly how much money we have left after expenses and bills. I like to break my monthly budget down into 4 key categories. So I've got my bills, I've got my variable expenses, I've got my fun money, and I've got my savings. So my bills are fixed, so that will include things like rent or mortgage, your energy bills, your water bills, any home costs such as home insurance, car insurance. And then there's also commitments like a monthly mobile phone bill and things like childcare and kids after school clubs that you've signed up to, that you've committed to paying for on a monthly or termly basis. Next, there are the other expenses that form part of your essential day-to-day life, but they tend to be variable, and they're also not leaving your bank account in one lump sum like your bills are. So this is things like food and also petrol or your travel costs to get to work and your kids to and from school, and also essential clothing such as new school shoes, new school uniform, new clothes for your kids if they've grown out of them. And as part of this, always remember to consider what expenses could come up this month. So has the boiler been on the blink for a while? Is your car, is there a red flashing light on the dashboard or something? Is there some kind of repair that you think is gonna come up at your next car service? Just try and think ahead and expect the unexpected. It can help to have a separate account for these variable expenses because it can just help you to keep an eye on them a little bit closer. Some people like to use apps like Hyperjar, which allow you to distribute money between jars, and those are your different categories. So say your grocery spending, your clothing spending, any days out spending, and that can just help to manage it. A lot of banking apps actually allow you to do this as well, but I mentioned the Hyperjar app because it actually is free. So it's a little bit like a digital cash envelope system. I like to keep track of all of this on my monthly budgeting spreadsheet, which is just fantastic for giving me an overview of my budget and then keeping track of how I'm actually doing over the course of the month. I'm gonna link it in the description below so that you can check it out. Once you've done this process, you can then see how much money that leaves you for the rest of the month. And if it leaves you with very little or nothing, then you need to go back and take a look at those expenses and bills, probably starting with those variable expenses because those are the easiest ones to change immediately to have an immediate impact, and you need to see where you can cut back a little bit. Obviously, there is potential to make savings on those fixed bills as well. You can go to Sky TV and try and haggle your bill down. You can see if there is a better insurance provider quote out there for you. You can ditch TV subscription services and other streaming services that are taking money out of your account every single month. Normally you have to give notice, but it's not normally a very long notice period. Now, it's the grocery bills that for many of us is the place where we can make a real immediate difference. It tends to be quite a large part of your monthly expenses. It certainly is for mine. Now, I had a look at ours 1 month last year, and I was shocked that we had managed to spend £800 in 1 month on groceries. I just sort of was a bit aghast at it. And anyway, I analysed that month, and it was a month where we'd had 2 lots of friends over, like with sort of kids of their own. So we were catering for quite a lot of people that month, and we just went completely overboard. So since that sort of slight shock, I have been really trying to keep our grocery spend low. We're down to only like one takeaway a month. Sometimes we don't have one in the month at all because we've got some really nice takeaway recipes that we can cook at home that we really enjoy. Whatever you're spending on your groceries, once you face those numbers, it makes it a lot easier to make savings. So go for cheaper cuts of meat, buy smaller packs of meat and bulk out your food with cans of beans, things that are cheaper to buy. Try to stop buying convenience food if you can, and then also really put your efforts into meal planning. Now, a few years ago, I really thought that I was meal planning. Whenever anyone said like, hey, save money by meal planning, I was like, I am meal planning. But there's meal planning, and then there's actual practical works to save you money meal planning. So there's meal planning where you start off with the intention of like following the list, and then you kind of lose your way and you end up buying extras throughout the week. And then there's a really solid practical meal plan that you stick to, that works for you, that works for all your families. So I think it's really worth just kind of reviewing, like, you know, if you are meal planning, is there sort of any improvements you can make on it? Is there waste at the end of the week? Have you not eaten all of the meals? Did you forget to freeze things? Did you have leftovers that you didn't eat up? Like, whatever it may be, if you are meal planning, brilliant, that's great. But I found that when I reviewed how our meal planning was actually going, there was a lot of room for improvement, including the fact that I was not often enough just opening the cupboard doors in the kitchen and seeing what we already had to eat up and double checking the freezer. And by the way, paying off any debt should also be a really big priority here, especially high interest debts that can really be holding you back. And trying to prioritize savings at this point is kind of pointless if you've got really high interest debt, because the interest you may be making on your savings might not quite be enough to kind of cancel out all that you're losing in that high interest debt. So channel that savings. Do you like what I'm doing with my hands here? Kind of illustrate with some kind of crazy hand motions here. My point is, try and channel what you would have put in the savings into the debt, get rid of the debt, and then you can start concentrating on your savings. By the way, if you love these frugal tips and tricks, then please subscribe to my channel for lots more from me. The next habit is to save. Have a plan for your savings in place and just take some time to review how it's all going. I save for 4 key things. So I've got annual expenses, such as holidays and Christmases and birthdays. Then I have a rainy day savings fund, and then I also have a big picture goals saving fund. So for us, this is for buying our next house. And then I also have my pension. As a good starting point for your savings, I think it's a really good idea to have 1 month of expenses and bills set aside so that you could survive if the unexpected happens. As much as it feels amazing to go shopping and splurge on something brand new, I have found that it feels 10 times better to have a safety net when something goes wrong. Savings shouldn't be what comes out of your bank account at the end of the month, like an afterthought. So say like just whatever you can afford. Savings should be something that comes out right at the start. Look, people are always saying, pay yourself first. Yeah, I'm gonna go one further. You should overpay yourself first. If you're a reformed shopaholic like I am, this can really help, because when you have a pool of money in your bank account, however much it might be, I'm not talking about thousands, even just 100 quid extra, when it's there, and you see something and you feel the urge for an impulse purchase and you see that the money's in your account, you may well just go ahead and buy that thing. So I move that extra money into an easy access savings account. So I can get to it, like if any expenses do like suddenly spiral out of control, but I'm not tempted to overspend with it. Having apps on your phone so that you can check in with your savings as well is a really good idea, because then you can really track the progress. It's definitely motivated me to be able to sort of check in. And also I found that if I am topping up on a weekly basis, which I'm now doing with one of my savings accounts, that's quite nice too, because it's going to change regularly throughout the month, and it's just a nice bit of added motivation. Moving on to the next habit then, and that is to remember to think long term. It's smart to take time to think what your longer term goals actually are, and you can help yourself reach those by breaking these down into little chunks that you need to do in order to get to the finish line. So for example, like if you want to save money for your next house move, you're not going to do it in just 1 month if you need tens of thousands of pounds. That's not going to happen overnight. But if you break it down into small monthly chunks or even into weekly chunks, it feels more manageable. And meeting your long-term personal finance goals might also be about more than just cutting back on your spending. It could also be about trying to increase your income. Now that could be through trying to achieve a pay rise at work or through starting a side hustle. I absolutely love side hustles. I have made thousands from different side hustles over the last few years since I left my full-time job. It's an absolutely great way to bring in a bit of extra money, find something you're passionate about, and try and make some money out of it. I'm going to link to an article in the description below where I share over 70 different side hustle ideas. And my final habit, and this one is so important, be kind to yourself, but please don't avoid your bank balance. And this can be like really difficult if you are dreading seeing the reality. Okay, like maybe you have in your head, like, I know I've overspent, I don't want to have a look, I don't want to check in. But checking in is so important because once you're armed with the information, then you can start to make changes. If you are just like blindly like feeling your way through the dark, chances are things are just going to get worse. And if you get to the end of your budgeting session and you realize that you're not going to be able to put away as much money this month as you had hoped to, you're not managing to save as much as you'd hoped to, don't beat yourself up about that. It is hard right now because it's hard. The vast majority of people are finding it harder right now. The cost of living crisis means that most people are having to tighten their belts. Try and accept that you may not be able to save as much right now as you would have been like maybe a few years ago, but that's okay. Any small amount saved, having that emergency fund in place, that's fantastic. You should pat yourself on the back for it. If you found these budgeting habits useful, don't forget to hit like and maybe drop in the comments some of your own payday habits that help you live below your means.